Those look pretty cool, right? This don't really look like as much as anything you're thinking. You go. Oh, it's a flat X. Flat X is like one of the fastest cars out there. Yeah, especially in its whatever ludicrous speed mode or whatever they call it. Not promising. Bar up front and lights on it and stuff, and I'm like, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know. I don't mind where I'm at, so I can't complain. Dougal? Isn't that what he called it? Dougal? I think that's what he called it. Paul? It's not Paul Allen. Either, I can't remember. Dan. Dan something. Anyway. Teenagers. He goes, there's this gal who just walked in. I took my son to this show.
Heidi, can you hear us? I heard that. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna turn my.
Right.
Okay, I heard that, but you were cutting in and out. But can you hear me and can you see me?
I can see you and hear you, Heidi.
Okay.
Wait for Travis to get back and then we can start this. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, August 15th meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. Commissioner Heidi Durand will be participating in this meeting virtually from the address located at 3625 22nd Avenue South, Moorhead, Minnesota 56560, which location is open and accessible to the public during the meeting. The Moorhead Public Service Commission welcomes and encourages customer input on issues listed on the agenda or of general water and electric utility interest, time and commission permitting. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute presentation. Customers wishing to address the commission regarding a specific agenda item will be afforded an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Customers wishing to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be given the opportunity to do so under the heading Customers to be Heard and/or Recognition. Each person requesting the opportunity to speak is asked to fill out a request to speak form located in the back of the room and present it to the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email on anything that cannot be resolved this evening. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by McDougall, seconded by Paulson, to approve the meeting's agenda. McDougall?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
Thompson? Yes. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second. Heidi.
Okay, I have a motion by Durand, seconded by Paulson, to approve the consent agenda. Dougal?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Item number 6, customers to be heard and/or recognitions. Mr. Schmidt?
No customers in the audience tonight, but I do have one recognition. Mark Pritchard had his 10-year work anniversary or work milestone. So
Great.
just want to thank Mark for the last 10 years and continued career at MPS.
And 10 more years at least, Mark. Good.
That is it.
That's it. Sebastian will be at the next meeting, I hope, so that we can recognize his efforts.
I should be here.
Okay. Well, we're going to miss you, Sebastian, anyway.
Well, thank you.
Any old business, folks? Okay, seeing none. Move on to the report. City Council, Mr. Gilbertson's not here this evening, so we'll move on to Public Service Commission reports. I don't think we had any meetings. General Manager's report, Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, I'll go through a few items here. Again, a majority of what's in the General Manager's report is the second quarter strategic plan updates. Again, our strategic directions are community, our team, water, electric, finance, and innovation. And I've got an update from the last quarter based on memos I received from the division managers. I guess I would like to focus a little bit more on the strategic plan matrix, which is the 2-page item that's in your packet. Again, if you look at the second-year accomplishments, there are a majority of what we've got on those second-year accomplishments are in progress. We do have about 8 of the items already completed, and then we've got a couple that we'll be working on in second and third quarter of this year as well, too. The other part of this is the dashboards, and this is really the KPIs or the key performance indicators that we provide on a quarterly basis as well. So overall purchase power and energy purchases are above budget for the second quarter. It was a little tight in April, but May and June kind of made up for that. Let's see what else. Outages, again, a majority of our outages are wildlife related. So again, those pesky squirrels causing issues. Other than that, it's been pretty good summer so far. On the water side, you will see our chemical costs are up from last year. Again, we've seen those costs increase dramatically in the last few years, and that's a major piece of that, especially over the average from 19 to 2021. Other than that, we did have a lot more main breaks in the second quarter. A lot of these are some larger size pipe, a lot of 6-inch and some services to the homes as well. So just a note on that. Financially, overall revenue is up. Operating expenses are below budget. Year-to-date net position, we're about $2 million ahead of schedule. We'll see how the last 2 remaining quarters of the year go. On the water side, revenue is up, expenses are down a little bit, and then we're about $443,000 above budget. So we're doing good, net position. And finally, last thing to note, we did have one injury in June, and that is noted in the dashboard for safety. And that concludes my report, besides everything else that's in there.
Questions for Mr. Schmidt? Please, Mr. Paulson, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Schmidt, I was just wondering about the lead service line inventory project. That's coming along nicely. I see. I thought I saw something with the state of Minnesota that there are grant funds available for that. I'm just wondering how that all works with the privatization of the service lines between the home and a curb stop. However, we're also looking at the AMI project as well, and there's a lot of moving parts there, I guess, and maybe just some clarification.
Yeah, Jake wasn't able to be here tonight. I'm gonna have Mark kind of help out a little bit with explaining it, but I'll start the process here. So, lead service line inventory project's going well. Again, 60%. I know Jake is trying to figure out how to deal with that last 40%. We're not getting responses from those customers that we've sent mailers out to them as well too. We are going to utilize the AMI project as we're doing meter replacements to collect that data as well. So from what Jake and Mark and I have been talking about, we have to, if we don't have a response on those lead service lines, we have to deem them as lead until they can be inspected. So the AMI project will help mitigate some of those as we get into the homes and doing that. Could take a few more years. The inventory portion of that assessment needs to be in by, I think, September or October of next year. Your privatization piece of that, we have applied for grant funding. Mark, I'll let you kind of speak to that and then maybe talk about the separation piece that we're still dealing with.
Thank you, Travis. Mark Pritchard, Water Plant Manager. As Travis had mentioned, there's been a lot of work going on in the background for the Drinking Water Revolving Fund loan application process. That's where a majority of the federal grant funding is being funneled to through those processes, since it's already able to disseminate funds down to the local and regional level. In 2022, MPS did submit a variety of lead service line inventory replacement plans to that dwarf loan application process, and we actually re-upped that information with intended use plans here this summer. It sounds like there's a lot of drive at the state level in Minnesota to prioritize lead service line inventory replacement through the dwarf loan applications. And the nice thing is, with the recent legislative updates coming from the state, they ended up agreeing to the 0% loans for the utility side replacement, and they're also using the federal dollars to use as a 50% cost share with the utility and the homeowner or the resident. So essentially it's going to be a 50% grant for the total replacement cost, with the grant money being allocated to the privately owned portion to basically incentivize the replacement. The one kicker about the new lead service line replacement projects as they go on is if you only do half, it doesn't count at all in the eyes of the state for removal of the lead service line. It's kind of an all or nothing process. So the grant funding through the federal dollars is going to be funneled to the private side to incentivize that to be removed. And then for the utility side, it's going to be incentivized with 0% financing through the state. So they have a lot of moving parts in the background, and it seems to be coming together quite nicely.
That sounds great, Mark, and what a great program. So I would anticipate then you find willing applicants within the city, and then we would group those together into biddable contracts then? And we would actually manage the replacement of the homeowner's line and do it with our contractor, is that right?
Yes. There's most likely going to be enough work where we would contract out the work. And as we've gone through a majority of the recent years' water main replacement projects, we are replacing them as we find them. We'll continue to do so long term as we come across them with other scheduled water main replacement projects that MPS staff take care of. We will most likely be prioritizing full city blocks so that we can kind of go in there once, take care of everything in that city block with a contractor, and then move on to the next area. We kind of have it chunked out in different locations where we can take care of probably 30 to 50 at a time.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. And I would also like to say that Jake has done a tremendous job thus far getting all this stuff put together with us. So big shout out to Mr. Long.
Mark,
Sure.
one question for you too. So with the cost sharing, how does that work with the public side and the private side of the lines? Maybe want to explain that a little bit more. I know you got all or nothing, but is there how are we managing, or what's the plan to manage that private side to the public side of the infrastructure?
Sure. So basically through the dwarf loan application process, MPS would basically be the intermediary that handles the paperwork between the resident who owns the property and the state. So we would essentially submit the full project cost for an individual service line replacement. We would essentially take care of the entire cost and then be reimbursed half through that grant program. So that's my understanding. There could be other situations where the individual resident homeowner would be able to directly apply, but then it would be potentially more problematic from a project management side if we didn't have that access the same way. So I think there's probably those two main ways to do it, but I think that majority of the cities throughout Minnesota that will be replacing lead service lines will be kind of the main intermediary between the resident and the loan application processors at the state level.
Mark, do you recall what's the, is there going to be an expense to the property owners for replacing that lead service line, or how does that piece of it function? Are we still working through the details on that?
That part is less clear. There's been a big push at the state level to have the grants disseminated ahead of time so that there would be zero cost to the homeowner. That part is still, to my understanding, in flux. There's not a whole lot of answers on how to solidify that, but I know that there's a lot of cities with a lot of interest in how that process is going, so they're definitely working on it.
I know there's been some conversations with wastewater as well too, if there's an opportunity to replace the sewer service lines at the same time. So we've been talking through that as well, but still trying to flush out the details on how this is going to work to then set that up, because I think that's going to be more of a homeowner cost if they want to do it or not. But cost value is there when you have a trench open already.
Does the city know about where their clay tile sewers are? And
I would assume yes. And that's probably a better question for engineering or wastewater.
okay,
It's going to burden us in terms of trying to be this intermediary, is it in terms of person power, labor hours?
It has the potential to, but to my eyes, it wouldn't be any different from how we administer other large-scale projects for our infrastructure. So I'm very confident we'll be able to tackle what we need.
Any other questions for Mark while he's here? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where are we now? I'm lost.
So the GM
Oh,
report.
that's what I thought. Okay.
I'm done. So
You're done?
whenever you're ready.
Okay, all right. That was my question.
Yep.
We have more or not? Okay, I entertain a motion to accept the general manager's report.
Moved.
second?
I have a motion by McDougall, seconded by Paulson, to accept the general manager's report. McDougall,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Duran,
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Item 8D, Bright Energy Solutions.
Yep, I'm going to have Taylor Holt, project engineer. He's going to come up and speak to this. Again, this is a program that we put on for the schools. It's been doing it for several years now. I'm going to let Taylor kind of speak to the program and the report for the year. Go ahead, Taylor.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. Taylor Holt, project engineer. This Power Team Energy Wise program is something we do joint with Missouri River Energy Services through Bright Energy Solutions, in which we do have a cost share to provide fifth graders in town with energy efficiency kits. Provides the teachers with a pre-test, set a base mark of what the students know already up to this point. And then they go through, I believe it's a 2-week curriculum where they do some activities in school, explaining the contents of the kit. Then they're also required to do some at-home activities. For example, they are given 2 LED light bulbs, and they learn about the efficiency gains that they make by replacing their old incandescent or fluorescent light bulbs with these LED bulbs. They then follow up with a post-test, and it shows clear gains year after year every time we do this program. As I stated earlier, there's a cost share on this. Currently, last year the kits cost $44. This past year there were 563 students at the Horizon Middle School that participated in this program. We began exploring with 2 private schools in town, and we're hoping that they join participation in the program this upcoming year. Ultimately, the program leads to immediate and long-term energy savings, which is why it falls under our SIP program as well. One part I would just like to mention going into next year, MRES is working on rebranding the program with a new vendor, in which that $44 cost per kit is supposed to be reducing to $35 per kit. And the improvements as far as the program goes is they're going to be digitizing the teacher's kit and the reporting parts of it. Ultimately, it ends up being the same product. Are there any questions from the commissioners at this point?
So is there a follow-up? You said something about follow-up with students. Do they report back at the end of the year, or is
It ends up being at the end of the curriculum.
okay, so
There's
2 weeks?
Yeah. I haven't personally participated in it. I was just kind of thinking in preparation here that it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually have one of the representatives from the school kind of give their experience.
Yeah, that would be
some
great.
point.
Any questions for Taylor? All right, Taylor, thank you so much. Entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Second?
Second. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a motion by Paulson, seconded by McDougall, to accept the report on Bright Energy Solutions. Discussion? McDougall,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Thompson. Aye. Durand.
Yes.
Great. Item 8E, regional electric rates.
Sure, I'll start with this, and Taylor can bring it home here. So overall, again, another good year, a great year. Again, we get to be the lowest in the region when it comes to electric rates in all 3 or 4 of our classes, 3 classes, excuse me. Again, I'll let Taylor kind of speak to it, but overall, this is a goal we've been looking and working towards, and we've been able to attain it the last couple of years. Rates are going to be increasing just due to the overall generation transmission needs, but we'd like to keep going with this as a goal for us going forward as well too. So Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you. Electric rates are an important benchmark for measuring our efficiency and effectiveness, fulfilling our mission statement, and establishing our competitive standing among surrounding utilities. The report here compares us to what we see in the direct area, but another important thing about our electric rates is it ends up getting tied to our credit rating. So that plays a major role when we have to go out for bonding. One thing to note is when we get our rates are impacted more looking at the state level when it comes to the credit rating by Moody's. One thing to note here with this report is kind of understanding what actually makes up a rate. It usually starts with a flat charge or a meter charge that each customer in whatever customer base you fall under gets charged monthly. Then you get a electric consumption rate and a demand charge, and those can vary seasonally. Beyond that, there can be interim rate increases, especially with the private utilities. They have to have things filed through the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission well ahead of them actually being allowable. And then there's also riders that come into play. These are charges for specific aspects of a utility service, such as the cost of fuel. In my experience, MPS hasn't had any riders in the past, and the way of calculating anticipated electric bills is a lot easier in Moorhead. A part of this report, we tried to compare ourselves in 4 different rate classes based on what we tried to determine was an average customer's electric bill. As Travis stated, our rates are currently the lowest in all 4 categories. A lot of that has to do with some large rate increases by all of the other utilities in the area. I think they began in 2022 and became permanent at the beginning of 2023. With our future rate increases coming up, I can't say whether or not our competitors will be increasing at the same rate, but we're doing our best to keep those rate increases as low as we can. Any other questions or anything else you'd like to add, Travis?
Yeah, again, like Taylor said, we look at average use for a home. When it comes to a home, we just charge a kilowatt hour rate. We charge an energy rate, not energy and demand. That's more for the commercial industrial side of things. So we do have to work on making sure everything matches correctly. Pretty much everybody in the region on a residential rate does just a kilowatt hour rate. They don't do a demand charge as well. We're commercial, and commercial is very much the same in the region. So we're doing energy and demand as well too. So again, we're looking at it from an average perspective, but you got to, when you come into the investor-owned utilities, you got to look at those riders as well too, as they're part of the overall purchase power cost. We incorporate that right away, so we don't have these riders as they put in their bills as well too. So you might say their kilowatt hour rate is 10 cents a kilowatt hour when it's actually 13 or 14 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's important to make sure you understand that piece. And so Taylor and I work through that to make sure we get accurate information and we're not filling you full of hot air. So, but overall, it's fantastic. I'm happy where we're at and continue with that. And we'll just have to be very cautious and financially responsible as we move forward with rate increases so that we can keep promoting that as well too. Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks, Taylor. Any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Paulson.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Schmidt, so these utilities are local utilities. When you do a comparison of other similar sized towns in Minnesota, how do we compare? If you want to follow up, that's fine. I understand it's a tough question.
We might have to get back with you on that. If you look at, and I've got some data from Missouri River Energy Services, and they look at that as well too. Not as much. They probably look at it more from the Joint Action Agency level. They're looking at like the basins, the Minnesotas of the world, where we're kind of a step down from that, and looking at it more from the distribution providers as well too. Taylor, do you have any other insight or knowledge on that?
I can't give you specific knowledge on other utilities, but we feel that the direct area utilities are most like us. The main difference is who we purchase our power from. But if we were to work with MRES to see how we rank amongst other utilities, they're not really apples to apples comparisons. We're one of the largest members of Missouri River Energy Services, but we have a very diverse portfolio of customers where another utility might serve 60 or 70% of their load to one individual customer. Or you might have another small town that has 100% WAPA allocation who has a very, very low rate in comparison. But if they were to grow, that could negatively affect all of their existing customers and increase rates. But it gets convoluted really, really quickly, which I had a clear answer for you. But if you'd
Yeah.
like, we could investigate further.
Yeah,
just
I mean,
don't
we
know where it's
could,
gonna
we could
lead.
compare to some of the utilities down in the Minneapolis area. We do it regionally because we're competing with Fargo, and that's where we want to be competitive. So we're trying to grow that economic development side of things.
I could add, though, that two of the utilities are actually one utility that just separated by state boundaries, so that ends up essentially being a statewide rate.
Yeah, I don't need an in-depth analysis. I was just wondering, Moody's uses the state average, to determine our credit rating. And so I was just curious as to, how are they viewing that? And I agree, it seems to be very difficult to compare apples to oranges here, because wherever you purchase the power is really going to have an impact on what your rates are. So
Yeah, and I know that, the joint action agencies or the G&Ts in the cooperative world, their credit ratings also impact the members and vice versa. Because
Sure.
I know Mark and I have been on phone calls, or Jerry and I in the past have been on calls trying to provide information for their rating calls that they've had. So, and to be honest with you, we haven't had a rating call on the electric side since 2016, Mark? Might have been
Yeah.
14. So it's been a while. And
Sure.
we will be doing a bonding effort for the DOE substation here,
Right.
probably early 2024. So, we'll probably see some stuff there. We'll probably have to do a ratings call. So we're talking through that right now. Like Taylor said, the portfolio with having WAPA, it's a huge benefit to us. If we didn't have that WAPA benefit, our prices would be a lot higher, or probably very close to some of these other regional competitors. So you get down in the cities area, they don't have that WAPA allocation, so it becomes, they're buying more off the G&T market, whether it's the cooperatives or investor owns or through another joint action agency on the public power side of things. So, and it really depends on where they're getting their power from and what they're paying for it. So like Taylor said, it gets convoluted very quickly.
yeah. So Mark, there's no concern on the upcoming bonding effort as far as our ratings.
Yeah, why don't you come up, Mark?
I guess that's what I'm really getting at with the question.
Mark Moylan and Finance Manager. Yeah, in response to that, like Travis indicated, we've been talking with our bond counsel, our bond representative, to see where we're sitting. They aren't very concerned because they see our annual write-up that we provide as part of our city information that we provide as part of their bonding. And the issues that they identified back in 2014, we've improved considerably. If you look at, they have like 6 primary indicators that they look at. We had 2 that were kind of iffy, and they were our cash reserve levels and possibly the transfer. Well, since that occurred, we've had the transfer agreement in place, which helped, at least solidify the status of that so it's a little more levelized. And then our reserves have gone up considerably because we've done a little bit more planning. We've raised rates as needed to raise things to cover some of our projects like the AMI project. So we're sitting much better than we were then.
Perfect. Thank you.
That you did well on the fly. Any other questions about electric rates? Okay, I entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, a motion by Paulson, seconded by McDougall to accept the report on regional electric rates. Discussion? Had it. McDougall,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Duran,
Yes.
Thompson. Item number 10, budget timetable. Mr. Schmidt.
Yep, I'll start this, and I'll have Mark Moylan come up and speak to it as he's our finance manager. We've actually started preliminary talks, internal talks already on the budget side with the division managers and putting together the plans for next year, or the needs for next year, so that we're prepared for the conversation with the budget work group when that occurs. Mark, I'll kind of let you go through your detailed report here and go from there.
All right. Well, thank you, Travis. As before, you have a proposal or a recommendation here to review the budget timetable, to appoint a work group, and then set the date for the formal rate hearings for electric and water. As Travis indicated, we've been working on putting together our budget for 2024 over the last week. Over the last couple of months, actually, we've gathered some of our outside inputs, such as our purchase power on the electric side, our transmission costs, our SPP reimbursements that we might be getting from our transfer. We've also been looking at the water side as to what's happening with chemicals, materials for our water main projects, and we've also been looking at our financing, because we do have a couple of major electric projects. So we want to make sure that we finance those properly using either reserves or bonding. So we've been gathering those inputs, and then as Travis indicated, over the last couple of weeks, we've been working with management teams to identify what is going on this year, how are we in comparison to budgeted, and then what are we looking at for next year and the next couple of years, so we can get at least a 3 to 5 year solid plan in place. On the electric side, though, we do have a electric rate study underway that is being completed by MRES. They will be presenting some information to you as part of the rate hearing in October. Over the next couple of weeks, they'll be meeting with Travis and I to go over some of our inputs and give some recommendations on what they are seeing for our electric rates. On the plus side, we do so many electric rate studies that we don't anticipate any major moves, but he'll just be looking to see if are we still right-sized for all of our rates and our customer classes. What we're looking at right now, tentatively, on the electric side is rate increases between 0 and 4%, and on the water side between 2 and 6%. Again, we need some more inputs as we work over the next couple of weeks and then start to meet with the budget work group. But at that point, we'll be able to bring a formal presentation to you in October at the rate hearing. This time, I'd open up for any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions about the process or the timetable? Okay, what's left on this action item is the appointment of the budget working group, and I want to thank Commissioners Durand and Paulson for agreeing to serve on that work group. I also, because Mr. McDougall has left us, or will, I have decided I will also be on that work group. So the work group will be composed of Durand, Paulson, and Thompson. With that, I entertain a motion to review this, I guess, yeah, and appoint the budget working group, accept the timetable and appoint the budget work group, and set the date for water and electric rates. So, anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, great. I have a motion by Durand, seconded by McDougall to appoint the budget work group, set date for water and electric rate hearings, and accept the 2024 budget timetable. Any discussion, any further discussion? Okay. McDougall?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
Thompson? Yes. Great. Meeting, no executive session needed today.
Not tonight.
All right, and we're still thinking that September 5th we should clear our calendars.
For right now, there's a potential if we don't have the agreements for AMI that we would potentially cancel that meeting, just because that's really the only thing on there. So
Okay.
with that, I want to recognize Sebastian and his efforts at MPS, and short notice, but we'll try to make sure we do something at another meeting.
Cake. I want there to be cake. Okay, I'd entertain a motion then to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by McDougall, seconded by Paulson to adjourn the meeting. What say you, McDougall?
Yes.
Paulson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.